Hi everyone, welcome to PAW Workshop. So today workshop's gonna be what to check when revising draft. All right, so I think this workshop is really important because as you guys are revising draft right now, it is good to know what to check and what to revise, right? And this workshop is by me and my PAW fellow D. And for those of you who don't know what the PAWs are, we're students just like you, but we have finished the ARC1 and ARC2 classes, and we are also trained to give you guys some writing help. All right, so for some introductions, I'm Lee, and I'm from Hanoi, Vietnam. My major is business economics, and I joined the PAW program from spring 2022. And this is my PAW fellow, Dee. She had just finished her PAW shift, and she is from Sri Lanka. Her major is international relations, and she joined the PAW program from fall 2022. And that is the table content of the workshop today. Oh, here's D. And the first part gonna be warm up, and the second part gonna be the elements to check when revising draft. The third part gonna be common mistake when revising, and the fourth one's gonna be how to read TurnItIn report in the most effective way. And at the end of the workshop, we're gonna have a attendance Google form to register your attendance. So please stay at the end of the workshop and engage in. All right, so let's come to the first part, our warm up. So we're gonna have two questions here using a Jamboard. The first question is gonna be, what are your current topics for ARC1, ARC2? And the second question is gonna be, what are some of the problems and challenges you're having revising draft? So here is the Jamboard. I'm gonna copy the link for you guys. And yes, just fill it in. Okay, here. Here's the link to the Jamboard. So here are the two questions, and in order to fill in, you guys will click here, sticky note, and then just type something, so your topic or your problems, and save here. And you guys can move from here to here. You can also change size if you want. All right, so you guys gonna have 3 minutes to fill this in, and then we're gonna discuss this.
I think I'll use the silence to introduce myself because I was a bit late. Sorry, guys, I just had a pause shift until 12 and I had to run up to the E Plaza. But hello, everyone, and welcome to our joint workshop. We're very excited and we hope you have a great time today. So I hope you guys will start by participating in our Jamboard warm-up.
Summer, know about the way that you want your
For those
books
of you who have just joined in, so
and
just go
sent.
to the Jamboard link.
For example,
Here's the
please
Jamboard link.
remember that only a phrase will ensure prompt delivery. Okay. Yeah, so you ask them to send the goods by air, not by sea, because by sea it takes.
Okay, for those of you who just go in here, go into the Jamboard and just fill in some of your ideas. And make sure to mute yourself also.
Should we maybe use this timely to talk about ourselves and what we wrote about back when we were AC 1 and 2? Because back then we didn't have ARC 1 and ARC 2.
Yeah, so for my IRC1, all of the classmates in our class have to write about like effects of English education in Japan, and we have to compare. And then the second topic was about the comparison between face-to-face communication and offline communications. So I think it's different for the topics for ARC1 student right now.
Right,
How about
I think
you?
so. Because I think for AC2, I had freedom to choose any topic I wanted, and I wrote about the refugee crisis in Europe, and I joined it with feminism. But for my AC1 essays, I think we had to choose from topics given by the instructor, and it was related to renewable energy. So I actually wrote an essay arguing why we should still use coal, even though we should be moving to renewable energy. I'm totally for renewable energy, though. I just wanted to try and make an argument.
That's interesting. All right, so okay, let's see how our participants are doing.
Oh,
Oh,
we have a topic for abortion.
ooh, gotta stop this. Okay, just fill in if you could just come in. Here is a link to the Jamboard. Um, all right, we have abortion here. Oh, we have some of the new Jamboard opened. Okay, just fill in here. Oh, we have abortion. Oh, I wonder if it is like ARC1 or ARC2 topic. Hmm. Oh, and also AI in higher education.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I think that's maybe a DBI topic.
That makes me think is abortion an IR topic?
Perhaps, perhaps. And let's wait for a bit more time for people to fill in. Okay, we're gonna might come back to this later. So just move forward a bit. Right? So let's find different ways to handle these challenges for this workshop. And let's move to the elements to check when revising drafts. So before we go into detail in this, we have an awesome website and effective tool made by Mia, one of our PAWs to check our drafts. So you can also find this website through our PAW website, or you can scan your QR code to see this website. So if you go to our PAW website, here's our PAW website, you will see this in the resources. And this is in website created by the PAWs, takeaway checklist for your paper. I'm gonna walk you through a little bit of this website. Also, here's a link. So that is a checklist for your paper. And if you don't know where to start, no worries, because this website gonna help you to check your paper. And we have a lot of checklists here, ARC2, Texas paragraph, and thesis statement. And about this project, it was from Mia, one of our PAWs, and she just created this web-based app in order for students to check their ARC1 paper, ARC2 paper, or some of the quick checklists like Texas paragraph, APA formatting, and thesis statement. And we are gonna go into details this right now. Okay. So firstly, we have some difference between ARC1 and ARC2 paper. For ARC1, we have like 8 sections, and for ARC2, currently we have 10. Because for current ARC2 students, we don't have the discussion part anymore. So I just gonna talk about the main difference here. For ARC2 papers, we have abstract and background that are different from ARC1. And then the other things are basically mostly the same. So for ARC1 students, you can use a checklist and check what you need to revise And also you can look forward to do the abstract and background for ARC2 paper. And for ARC2 students, you can look back to your ARC1 too in order to reflect on it and see what you need to add. Looking forward to your ARC2 paper. So these two papers are strongly connected. So here's a diagram that I made just from the last slide. So we have the overall structure here. So you're gonna check like, is it have the 3 parts, intro, body, conclusion yet? And you're gonna check like whether you have reached a page limit yet. And then you have the intro, the body, and the conclusion. So for the intro, you're gonna have abstract and then background for ARC2 students. And for ARC1, only the intro and thesis statement. And then for the body, you have to check the cohesion and paragraph organization. So see how your ideas are connected and is it like related to the thesis statement yet? And then the Texas paragraph structure. And then conclusion. Reset the thesis statement and then just put in some implications and call to actions. So the other things that you will also need to include are the reference and then the APA formatting, both in text and the reference, and then grammar, punctuation, and vocabulary. So these are mainly what you need to check moving forward. So we have just introduced the website, right? So how to use Checkaway. So I'm gonna give you guys an example of checking the overall structure for AC1 and AC2 paper because it is like the same part for both of the paper. Okay, and you guys can separate your windows like this when you use your paper. So one window is just like the Checkaway website and one window is gonna be your draft. So this is my final draft for one of my AC1 essays. It is the first essay of AC1, so it's pretty short and it's easy to follow. So just use it as an example. Okay, so we are having these two windows side by side. And here's Checkaway, the home page. Gonna go into your ARC1 or ARC2. So here's ARC1, so go to ARC1. And then you're gonna see a lot of sections here that you can check. And okay, it is the essay, and let's check the first one, overall structure. In here, you're gonna see some of the criteria in the not done part because you haven't checked it, right? So it's still not done. And firstly, essay includes the components. Introduction, okay, is here. The body, all right. And then conclusion, okay, is here. Good, so checked. And then it's moved to the done part. And then essay contains a complete thesis statement. And you're gonna look, and then find thesis statement. Is it undeniably affect the education environment, cultural exchange, and business economies in Japan? Okay, so main topic, controlling ideas. Okay, thesis statement. And then a title page. Okay, we have the title page here. We have topic, name, uni, and author note. All right. And then include a reference list at the end. So we're gonna scroll down to see whether we have included the reference list for all of the intake citation or not. Okay, so here we have the reference list here. Okay, good. And then essay content is within the page limits. So for this essay, my page limit was 3. So we have 3 here. Okay, so everything is in the done checklist. And that is how you check your essay. So just one example of a section here. And also for some students who have just joined, we are using a tool called Checkaway. Okay, let's move forward. And here we have some common mistakes when writing. So in this part, we will cover the text paragraph structure, APA formatting, including general format, in-text citations, and the reference list, and then grammar. So major grammatical errors, including punctuation. So just move to the first part, which is our Texas paragraph structure. So yeah, that is also one of the projects that we made. It is about the Texas paragraph hamburger. So for those of you who don't know, we're using this structure in order to write our paragraph and to develop our arguments. It's really useful. So for the first one, we have T, topic sentence. So we introduce the paragraph arguments and ideas. So mainly your main ideas, and you're going to point out what you're doing for that paragraph. And then for E is the explanations of the argument and ideas. And you support your ideas. And then you go to the examples part in order to support your arguments. So these are mostly your journal articles sources. And then for the A is the analysis of your evidence and how it relates to and support the arguments and ideas. And then for the S, the last one, is summary and significance or synthesis. So summarize your key ideas and remember to tie back to the topic sentence or into the next paragraph topic sentence. So we're gonna use our checkaway checklist, and let me copy the link here for you guys. For some of you who have just joined, there is a link to the checklist. And here is the Texas paragraph checklist. Okay, we're gonna see how it works. I'm gonna separate your windows by 2. And here you're gonna see the first one, topic sentence. And we're gonna see the topic sentence here. The history of hamburger is proof of the commoditization process that has taken the world by storm since the 90s. So here, the topic sentence had the main focus. Good, done. And then relevant elaboration and explanation is provided. So here relate to the explanations in the yellow part. So we have it here. Okay, it's good. Checked. And then we have the whole examples part here. So the examples in general and the paraphrase and the quoted ones. So it must relate to the point, and the paraphrase and summarize have to represent the original content of the source. And the quoted ones have to have like some of the author's memorable or like succinct words or responding to direct wording. So here in our Texas hamburger structure, hamburger essay, we're using a quote. So yeah, check it here. And since we don't have like paraphrase yet, or we're gonna check it in the other paragraph, just check it here for now. So yeah, checked. On next, we have analysis. So this part is very important. It must be your words. You are implying what you understand from the source. So here, got the blue ones here. Okay, it sounds good. Relate to the examples. Okay. Right, so just checked. And is valid, logical, original. Okay, it's really logical. Check it here. And then the synthesis, which is the last part, significant summary. All right, we see that we are citing and we are just using and summarizing our ideas here. We are showing significant. Okay, good. And checked. So then we're done with the Texas paragraph checklist. Yes, so that is just a brief tour of how we use Checkaway for ARC1, ARC2 paper, and the Texas paragraph checklist. All right, so let's move to the next part is APA formatting by my PAW fellows Lee.
Hello, guys. So I'll be taking over from Lee, and we'll be focusing on another section of common general mistakes that most of us tend to make, and this is APA formatting. So this is also one of the sections that Mia's checklist talks about, but because it's a bit roundabout, I decided to adapt it and break it down for you guys in 3 main focus areas. So we'll be talking about general formatting, which includes the title page, the in-text citations, and the reference list. So to begin with, let's look at general formatting. So in the general formatting in the next slide, you can see that there are 5 main points that we need to focus on. And I've taken a sample of my own essay and labeled the things so you can guys see how and where you should be looking at with these things. So to start with, you need to make sure that it's Times New Roman all throughout your essay. Font size is 12. And then you need to have double spacing, that is 2.0, and no paragraph spacing in between your paragraphs. Then you have to make sure your page margins are set to 1 inch, or for those of you who are not American, 2.54 centimeters. This is usually the default setting for Google Slides and most word processing documents. But if you feel like it's not set to this, you can check usually under page formatting, or for Google Docs, it's under File, Page Setup, and you can see the margins set there. Then the paragraph indent, which is basically the little space that you see at the beginning of each paragraph that sets it apart from other paragraphs. And make sure, so lastly, it's text aligning, which is set to left. So a lot of us might like to use Justify, which makes all paragraphs look like blocks. So in a lot of books, we have them looking really nice like blocks. But for APA formatting, this is not something you should be doing. Always make sure it's text aligned left. And now looking at the general formatting of the title page, you will see that there's basically a number of things you should be adding in the center of your page. To start with, it's your essay title that's sticking out from the rest of the information, and it's bolded. Followed by this is the author name, so you have my name there, the name of our university, the class name, the instructor name, and the submission date. So Mia does not talk about this, but if you notice in the top right, you will see the page number. So the page number should also be reflected in the title page under general formatting conventions of APA. So make sure you pay attention to that. Okay, moving on. We have the in-text citations. So these are basically the citations, your external sources included within your Texas paragraphs. So what should we look at when looking at in-text citations? First of all, we always need to mention the author and the date. So the author and the date method can be in 2 ways. We have what we call the strong author and the weak author. So this is basically, it depends on if you want to give importance to the author, to the source of your information or not. So if you want to, you will usually begin with the name of the author. So as in my example, you will see that it says Schellenberger 2017. This is a strong author example. A weak author is, as if you look at the very beginning of the example, it says Vargas and Chesney 2021. So this is in the parentheses, and at the very end of the sentence, we don't give the author that much importance. So this is a weak author. Regardless of which style you go for, we always need to make sure to mention the author and the date. And then you always need to make sure that you mention the page and the paragraph number. So for most sources, you will have a page number because they're research articles. But if you rely on popular sources such as news websites or web pages, you will not have page numbers. In that case, you would be looking at paragraph numbers, which are named as para. So make sure to always include this information. And depending on your instructor, they might require this even for paraphrases. So make sure to double check with them if they have not mentioned this before. Thirdly, we will look at direct quotations. So direct quotations always need what we call the quotation marks. So make sure you put them at the beginning and at the end. And lastly, we will be looking at block quotation formats. So some instructors might tell you explicitly not to put in block quotations, but these are basically quotations exceeding 40 words or more. And these need to be standing out from the rest of the paragraph, separately indented and in a separate paragraph, as you can see here. Okay, and now looking at the reference list. So basically the reference list includes all of the sources that you've cited throughout your essay. Now, a lot of us tend to use a lot of sources when we are researching our essay, when we are researching our topic, right? But it does not mean that everything we research ends up in the essay or ends up mentioned. So do we mention all the other extra things that we looked up? We don't. We only mention in the reference list things that we actually quoted through in-text citations. So what are the requirements for the reference list? First of all, like I mentioned, they are all present in the reference list. And secondly, the reference list is titled references in bold again. And then we make use of the hanging indentation, which is a special indentation under paragraph format, depending on your whatever you're using, Google Docs or MS Word or such. And it has to be 0.5 inches, or again for the non-Americans, 1.25 centimeters, 27 centimeters. And then we have to look at the correct formatting according to source type. Now, this means that depending on what source you're using, the APA style formatting guide has different requirements. So you have to make sure that you understand what type of source you're using and you're formatting it correctly according to the requirements set by APA 7th edition. Then we have to look at multiple authors. So sometimes our sources use multiple authors. That means the way you need to mention the names of these authors is a bit different. So as you can see in the point I marked 4, I mention all the last names and the first names in initials, and I separate each of the authors with a comma, and the last author, I make sure to use an ampersand. So that is how you should be using it for multiple authors. And then we have to look at the DOI or the URL. So depending on the source you use, research articles usually have a DOI. Right. So what is the difference between URL and DOI? That is a very good question. So DOI is actually given most often to research articles, and this is like a very special code, a very special link that identifies only this specific research article. So when you have this, it will redirect you no matter what to the original source. Now, a URL is a bit different because it's not a unique identifier of a specific source. It is just this specific link on the internet that will redirect you to whatever is there. The URL can be broken or can stop working. The DOI won't stop working like that. So most research articles have a DOI specifically, but other sources sometimes do not. So often if you go for JSTOR articles, you will notice they sometimes do not have a DOI, but they have a JSTOR stable URL. Stable meaning it won't be broken. In that case, if you do not have a DOI, you will be using that URL that is provided to you. I hope that clears up your question, Hossein. And moving on, lastly, we have to ensure that our reference list is in alphabetical order. That is, from the first source to the last one is A to Z order. Okay. And now moving on. So you might be asking, but what's the format for my source? Some of us just don't know. Sometimes I also don't know. That's not a problem. That's why we have so many resources that we can rely on. And two of these are the APA style guide itself or the Purdue OWL website, which is the online writing lab. I'm sorry for the bell. So here are the links, and you can go to these and look up at the specific, they have formatting style guides. Right. Thank you, Lee. So if you look at them, they will have something called the APA style 7th edition. And once you go there, you can look up specific requirements for your books and stuff. So it's under subsections, Lee, but it's okay. So, and then moving on, we have the other section that most of us tend to have difficulty with, and that is grammar. Grammar is very difficult. Again, this is adapted from Mia's checklist. I have condensed it into 3 focus areas again, and we are going to talk about grammar in the first one. So I've given you a very funny example that I made up. But grammar is basically all those errors that include run-on sentences, verb and syntax errors, spelling errors, typos that we need to look at. So for example, in this specific example that you can see, went and school are misspelled, and the ones I've highlighted in blue, fly and hate, are actually poor subject-verb agreement and do not fit the overall flow of this paragraph. So what do we do with grammar? Usually if you read something out loud, often helps. If you read it out loud and it doesn't really flow that well, chances are there is probably some sort of grammatical issue you should be looking at. So always make sure to read out loud your overall essay and feel it out. See, does this sound right? If it doesn't, it probably doesn't. And moving on, we have punctuation. So punctuation talks about the proper use of punctuation, full stops, exclamations, question marks, quotations, semicolons, colons, and so on. And it also talks about capitalization issues. So often when using punctuation, the following word often needs to be capitalized, but that is not the case for everything. For example, after a comma, you do not capitalize, and you do not after a semicolon as well. So you have to make sure that you have a proper understanding of when to capitalize and when to not. And that you know also where to use the proper punctuation marks. So in this example, again, the bad paragraph basically missed out on the quotations when it was reporting direct speech, and it missed out on the question mark and stuff like that. You can also notice in green, I've highlighted where potential capitalization issues pop up. So after the use of a period, for example, or when beginning speech inside quotations. After semicolon, should I use capitals? Actually, no. After using a semicolon, you should not use a capital unless you're talking about a proper noun. So for example, if I'm, let's say Lee, if I mention after a semicolon Lee, Lee is a name, so Lee would be capitalized. Besides that, no, you wouldn't capitalize. And moving on again to the final part of the grammar section, it's vocabulary and overall. So in this section, what we basically look at is appropriate vocabulary choice and the overall feel of your essay. Is it formal enough? Is it academic enough? Is it professional? So a lot of your instructors will have stressed that you should avoid personal pronouns. That is, no first person, no I, no we, no us, no my, no, etc. Right? This is because your essay should come off as impersonal. It should not feel like it is biased in any way towards the topic. It should feel like this is something professional and that everyone is in the essay is being judged on an equal level. So to maintain the impartiality of your essay, you make sure not to go into the usage of personal pronouns. Besides that, in the vocabulary and overall section, we are also looking at the meanings of your sentences. So that means that is your sentence as a standalone clear enough? And does your sentence together with other sentences in your paragraph or in the essay as a whole make sense? So it's about coherence. So you need to be coherent and make sure that the point you're trying to make is actually getting through in your essay. And lastly, it also talks about the appropriate levels of complexity and formality. So they are academic writing courses, academic literacy courses. So we expect students to maintain a general level of professionalism and try to sound advanced as much as they can in their writing. So that is basically what we're getting at. And moving on, once again, you might think, but I am bad at grammar. What do I do? Well, don't worry again. We have things like grammar checkers nowadays. One such thing is Grammarly, which I advise for all of you who do not have it to get it. So Grammarly can check for your main errors and issues, and it's supported for all your browsers. Google Docs, MS Word, desktop, Mac, you name it, it's supported. So make sure to use a grammar checker if you're especially shaky on the grammar issues, and it can automatically check for issues for you. Excuse me. And then moving on, we have exercise time. So let's see if you paid attention until now, guys. So here we have a sample Texas paragraph, again about hamburgers. So there's 5 main errors and 2 APA citation errors. You will have, how much time should we give them, Lee?
I think maybe 5 minutes. Is that okay? 5, 6?
So you have 5 minutes. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And good luck. Let's see if you can find them out. And if anyone else has any other questions in the meantime, I think Lee and I can help you answer them while others are working on the Texas paragraph. Okay, start.
Let's go. You guys can also type your answer in the chat and I'm gonna discuss it.
Okay, so we have a question actually. How do I cite a code that is cited in an online article that didn't mention the full reference, but the author name? Right. So in this case, this is actually an example of a secondary citation. That is, you're relying on A article, but A article mentions B source, and what you're actually using is the B source through the words of A article, right? In this case, what you will be quoting is actually the article that you're looking at, and you would be following this format. Let me type it in chat. So you would be mentioning the source that you're talking about. That would be like this. For example, Jones, 1998, as cited in Adams, 2001. So it would follow this kind of format actually. So you would be mentioning that you're taking this other source, but you have not looked at that source directly. So in my example, you have not looked at Jones' actual article. You've just looked at Adams' article, and Adams refers to Jones, and you also want to refer to Jones. So if you're not going to look at Jones' actual original article, you would be citing it this way by letting your audience know that you also have not looked at the original article, but are basing your understanding based off this other article, if that clears your point. You're welcome. Any more questions? So actually, while everyone is working on, I would also like to talk about this specific Texas paragraph that we wrote. So for the ones who are more well-versed in Texas, you will notice that if you read this paragraph as a whole, it's not written very well. Does Lee have an idea of what exactly is not written very well here?
What's not written really well here? So maybe you're mentioning, let's see. So can you tell me what is not written really well here?
So usually in a Texas paragraph, we try to make sure the point, the meaning of the whole paragraph as a whole is one, right? If you look at the topic sentence in this, and you look at the summary or the synthesis or the significance, the final sentence, you will see some sort of disconnect. In the topic sentence, we open up by talking about the evolution of the hamburger relating to the psychology of the evolution of the hamburger. And we mentioned this is interesting. We don't say in relation to what, but if you look at the very final sentence, it talks about two things actually. It goes in two directions. One way it talks about strategizing a marketing campaign. And the other way, it also says that fast food chains are very good in this extent. So this essay technically is not very good because the summary pulls in two different directions. You don't have one logical conclusion here. So what you're trying to do in a Texas paragraph is trying to make sure that your meanings as a whole are restricted to one thing. So you're trying to say this one thing without going around and giving so many meanings, right?
Yes, that's true. That is also what a lot of students are facing. They might think that they are including some implications and call to action by saying that, but actually they are kind of mentioning the two ideas like separately and not in the topic sentence. So it's also they need to be cautious when they are using the implications and call to actions. They need to make sure that that sounds like call to actions or implications, not the main ideas of the paragraph. So maybe using some transitional words.
Exactly. And the other point that you would notice is if you look at the elaboration, that is the second sentence of this Texas paragraph, and the fourth one, the analysis, you will see that they're actually very alike. They're talking about the same thing. So
Yes,
you might
it's
say, well,
true.
that's a great thing. Aren't we supposed to have one meaning for the whole Texas paragraph? Well, yes, but in your analysis, you're interpreting the example, right? So you should interpret the example, meaning that you should be explaining the example better, not relying back on your same elaboration.
Yeah, that is also another mistake, right? So what is the analysis here? So we often answer some of the questions relating to the example. So maybe what the example lead to, whether you understand about the examples in your own words, or why the example is like important, or why the example should be used in this case. So just okay, we were
We're
not
out
at
of time.
so seems like they haven't seen the mistakes here yet. So would you mind giving them some of the hints for the mistakes?
Okay, so should we go ahead and give them the answers maybe? Because we have one more section to talk about as well.
Yeah, that's true. So okay, look at here. That is gonna be one of the mistakes. Wait a minute. Here, all right.
Here are the
So
answers. So,
this is the
Mhm.
answer.
So in case you guess correctly in your mind, let's see if they were correct. So first of all, you will see McDonald's. The apostrophe was actually wrong. And then soon after that, you will see that there is the use of these when it should actually be this, because we are talking about, though commonly these last also reveal inner thought processes. So it's poor subject verb agreement, if you can see. And then we have down below in the example section, we have a comma. So actually you don't need a comma there, because after a comma, you would have another standalone phrase. But as you can see in this example here, gradually became, we do not have another noun there to support the verb became. So it's actually also dependent on the first noun that we mentioned in the beginning, the hamburger. So you don't actually need a comma before that but. Then we have the APA mistakes. If you looked at it, you will see that we mentioned the first name, the initial of the first name, which should not be there. And if you look at the page numbers, we have P. So this is actually a mistake a lot of students make. P should refer only when you're using a single page. So you would be saying P.44. Excuse my capitalization. It shouldn't be capital, but it's Zoom doing its thing. Instead of that, if you're using multiple pages, you would be talking about PP. So in this example, you would not be using a single P, but you would be saying PP, because we are talking about 2 pages. And itself, the next mistake is again poor subject verb agreement, because changes itself, no, it should be themselves. And then lastly, we have itself. So that is a wrong verb format. Fast food chains have itself. No, it should be have itself. So itself should have ed, like this. I hope you found all of the mistakes, everyone. I think we can move on to the final section of our workshop. Understanding the TurnItIn report. So a lot of you might not be very familiar with TurnItIn, that is previously before entering TIU. What is TurnItIn? TurnItIn is an American plagiarism detection service that was founded back in 1998. And what does it do? It basically takes your submission and checks it against its internal database. So its internal database has a lot of pages, like billions of pages that are current pages and archived pages from previous eras of the internet. It also has current submissions by students, not just of TIU, but of other universities as well. So your paper is getting checked against these many web pages, student submissions, to check if there's anything matching. So is there similar content anywhere? And then it gives you a similarity score. So This leads to our biggest question that a lot of students come and ask us is, I have a, let's say, 25% score. Does this mean I plagiarized? Does this mean I cheated? I copied? No, you did not cheat, hopefully, because a similarity score is not a plagiarism score. It does not equal to you copying, but a similarity score, what does it do is, it points the percentage, the amount of similar material found in your own submission and with its internal database. So it doesn't equal necessarily to plagiarism. What it equals to, though, as we can see in the next slide, is this is adapted also from one of our wonderful PAW resources on academic integrity, which you can access through our website. The similarity score basically points out two main things: problematic highlights and non-problematic highlights. Problematic highlights are basically what can actually be plagiarism. So this can include incorrectly formatted direct quotes, ineffective paraphrases, and issues with the supporting content. Non-problematic highlights, which is basically not plagiarism, means properly formatted direct quotes, references, and common content. So if we move on, we can look at problematic potential plagiarism. The first one is incorrectly formatted direct quotation. So if you look at this specific image, you will see that TurnItIn has highlighted the entire thing. That pretty much means it's a word-for-word match with something elsewhere. And because it's also highlighting the name of the author, you can see that they basically have taken word for word this from the author. So because you also look here, they included the page number. This means that this student is not trying to plagiarize, but they basically just forgotten to put the quotation marks. So this is a incorrectly formatted direct quotation. The intent is not to plagiarize, but this consists of a technical plagiarism, because even though the intent was not there, it's still, due to the lack of quotes, plagiarism. So pay attention, make sure you have your quotations. Next one, we have ineffective paraphrases, which is basically when you try to paraphrase, but it's not a good enough effort. So if you're struggling with paraphrases, my PAW fellow Lee actually has made a wonderful project on how to paraphrase called Effective Paraphrasing Strategies that you can also access through our PAW resources. I'm sure if you have time, we can look at it at the end of the workshop. But basically, in an ineffective paraphrase, what you're doing is either your word structure, the structure of your sentence, so the words you use are too similar to the original one, so it gets flagged as being too similar to it. So this means you should still work again on it and maybe try and rephrase it, change around the order, the words, maybe synonyms, maybe antonyms, and just try to change it as much as you can into your own writing, and you should be okay. Next point. This one is about supporting content. So as Lee talked about the Texas paragraph, the example, the TEX, the X of Texas is where you would mention your outside source, properly formatted. So outside of this, usually in all your other sections, the TEAS, it will not be referencing any outside external sources. It will be your own writing, your own thoughts and ideas, which means that, well, say unless you want to use some definitions of terms, which you usually would bring up in the elaboration, the second part of Texas. Outside of that, everything else would be your own thoughts and writings. So you would not be borrowing or paraphrasing or quoting anyone else outside of the X in the Texas. Okay, and that makes it for problematic potential plagiarism. And then we can briefly look at non-problematic or not plagiarism. So this includes direct quotes. So as you can see in the example here, you can see that TurnItIn has flagged this, but it has direct quotes, as you can see at the top. And there's also a reference, an in-text citation at the bottom. So this is actually an example of a properly formatted direct quote, and it is not plagiarism, even though it's flagged because of similarity. The second common example is the reference list. So The reference list has to provide sources, and it can match against so many other student submissions because you have to provide identical information. There's no two ways to provide a source for one article. It's always going to be the same, which means it can be identical. But does that mean you plagiarize? No, it's not, because that's the only way to do it. And thirdly, it's common content. So you will see in a lot of your submissions that words like our university name, the name of the class, or the instructor name gets flagged. This is because all of the students in that particular class are submitting the student paper submission with those exact details because your instructor required you to do so. That is not plagiarism then. Okay. So related to non-problematic plagiarism, not plagiarism, we actually have this wonderful thing. So depending on what settings your instructor has set for Turnitin, you can actually set it to exclude quotes, bibliography, and other non-potential highlights from it, so that you can actually look at only the potentially problematic ones. To do so, you would go on the sidebar, the right sidebar of your Turnitin report, click on the red funnel, and there you will probably have under filters to exclude quotes and whatever you would like to, and make sure to apply the changes, and this will bring down your plagiarism score. So before I end this, I also want all of you to know that with Turnitin, we technically have this idea in our minds that a lower score on the similarity score means you did great. That is not necessarily the case. Although very high similarity score means you copy pasted pretty much everything in your paper and that's a no-go, a very low score, suppose a score of 0, is actually equally bad because it means that your entire paper has nothing from the outside. There's no sources from the outside. It's all your own writing. But in academic writing, we expect students to provide sources to back up their claims with information provided by other scholars in the field, right? Which means you're always going to include some quotes, some paraphrases, a reference list. So you will have some level of similarity. So usually a low level of similarity, somewhere about 10, 20%, or for also depending on your assignment type, it may even go as high as 50%. It all depends on the requirements set by your instructor, right? So a similarity score does not necessarily mean a bad thing for you. It just means that you have to understand and interpret the Turnitin report so that you can use it to your advantage. Okay. And Lee, I think that concludes our workshop.
Okay, so before we end our workshop, we want to give you guys some of the websites and our YouTube channel for resources. So here is our PAW website. Here is a link to the website, as you guys can check it here. And in this one, you can go to resources, and there's a lot of resources by the PAWs. And for example, this one, you can see a lot of resources that you can check. And here is one of my projects, which is paraphrasing strategies, as Dee mentioned, that can help you with paraphrasing your sources. So there's a lot here. Just check it later. And then also we're having our YouTube channel. So our workshop videos is all posted here, and you can see a lot of good topics that can help you with your writing, like thesis statement and public speaking confidence, and then brainstorming topic selection. So for now, it is good to see this one to revise your draft too. All right, and then here is our Q&A attendance Google form. So just scan this, and also I will also send the link to the Zoom chat. And okay, you guys can fill it in to mark your attendance for this workshop. And remember that the workshop, after this workshop ends, 10 minutes after that, the form is gonna be closed. And meanwhile, you guys can also ask us any questions that you guys have about the workshop. All right. And also, let's check what we have here. Oh, we already have some other topics. Great. So China and US conflict, this is one of the IR's topics, right? And then social medias post negative impacts. Impacts of modern technology in SSI. Oh, I don't know what LSI means. Sounds
What does that
interesting.
stand for?
I
Maybe
don't
the
know, not
student can
sure.
help us out here.
Wow. Okay, a lot of good topics for ARC1, ARC2. So yeah, it is really important just to revise your draft because like these topics are really, really good. And just make it even more awesome. Okay, coming back here. After filling in the Google form, and if you guys don't have any questions, you guys can leave the workshop. Thank you for joining. And we're gonna be here until 1 p.m. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask us.
So feel free to use either the chat or send us private chats if that's what you like, or raise your hand or directly talk if that suits you as well. You're really welcome. We're glad we were of
Aw,
help.
thank you very much. We're glad you got help. So we're of help to you. You're welcome. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. All right, so this is the end of our workshop by Lee and Dee.
Thank you so much, guys. Hope you had fun, and we will probably see you again in a future workshop.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.